recording. As long as you're happy.
There you
The
go.
next
You found them.
few minutes.
One ball left.
One ball left. Okay, so as you probably know by now, I'm a survivor of the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami and earthquake, or earthquake and tsunami. This is the deadliest tsunami in history still, and the earthquake and tsunami are often in the top 10 natural disasters of the world. And to give you an idea, the earthquake was between 9.1 and 9.3 in the Richter scale. It was the largest fault, and the energy released is the equivalent of several atomic bombs. So and it was far enough that no one inland felt the earth shake, but it's close enough they just wiped out the whole area. It affected 14 countries altogether. Approximately 230,000 people died, including my parents. We were in Thailand at the time, and we were at the beach when the wave came. So it was the worst possible case. And that's where the book starts, with us going to the beach. And I was wondering, on preparing for these events, what portion should I read of this book when we first get to the beach and there's no water, when we see the wave coming, when we're running away and I see my parents disappear, or when I'm first swept by the wave, or what was the most fearful moment of everything. But then I thought, no, I'm not going to read those. Maybe if you want later. I'm going to talk about what I think are the 3 key moments in the whole adventure. And it's the 3 moments that after the tsunami, in those years when I was struggling mentally and emotionally, it's the 3 things that I came back to a lot that helped me overcome it. And the first key moment is precisely what I call my death, my first death. At this point, I have been underwater for what seems a very long time. My whole body is in pain, and the pain is such that I feel every muscle fiber, every cell of my body just working, trying to keep me alive. And I remember thinking how wonderful that is, that our bodies do that. But the pain just kept growing. It won't stop getting worse. And eventually, I thought about just stopping everything. Every movement just increased the pain, but also time passing by increased the pain. And I remember some talks that I had with my mother, where she was telling me about other people's testimonies who had been between life and death, and an angel had appeared to them and offered them a choice between life and death. And through this whole time, since we were at the beach, there was this voice in my head guiding me, and I was just running on instinct, so I never questioned it. Up until this point, it's like the first time that I address it consciously, and I ask it, well, isn't it time that you offer me that choice? Isn't this the moment? And immediately it tells me that I can just stop and let everything go and everything will be fine. I feel my pain leaving, and then there's like no pain, nothing but peace. Overwhelming, transcending peace like I've never felt before or since. And a feeling of returning home, like I had been at work for a very like exhausting work, and then I finally got to go home and rest. But more, because it hadn't just been a day at work, it had been 13 years at this point of work. And so I could just go home. But there was this feeling also that I hadn't done anything with my work. I was supposed to be here working, but I didn't feel like I had fulfilled anything. I was just 13. My life revolved around school, was just going to school, studying, doing my homework, getting good grades. I didn't feel like I did anything, but I had plans. I had lots of plans. And out of all those desires and plans, there was just two things I really wanted. One was to know true love, and the second one was to know that my work here had meant something, that I had made an impact, however small. Even if no one knew my name or what I had done, I would know, and that was enough. So at this point, death feels like a good thing, so I don't fear it anymore. But life, it just feels so fleeting. I have no idea what it's going to be like, but I know that it's my only chance at knowing true love. And so that is a guarantee, but life was not, so I chose life, even though I didn't know what it could be. And I say that it was the unknown that kept me alive. Curiosity killed the cat, but it kept me alive, because it was just not knowing what life could be. So I choose life, and I tell it, like in my thoughts, I choose life. The moment I choose life, I reach surface, and I'm never pulled back down the water, and just things just start
It's not working
in my favor, so that I do live. And then once I'm in the surface, I pass out. And I'm woken up by this same presence, but I feel like it's holding me by the shoulders like a real person would. But of course, there's nothing there. And it tells me in my mind, wake up, and that's what wakes me up. And I wake up, and it tells me to call out for God, and then it just disappears. And in that moment when it just disappears, I feel so alone. Like the vacuum it left let me know that it had always been there, because now it wasn't. And he left me with the words, call for God, which to me was very strange. And I even looked around to make sure no one was there to hear me out. That's how embarrassed I was. And I call out for God, because after struggling with myself, I just say, well, if this voice who has helped you this long tells you to call out for God, then you do it. And really, I had nothing left to lose at that point. I was completely alone in the physical and in the spiritual. So I call out for God. And as I do, as I'm saying, God help me, save me, I feel the emotion in my own words. I start getting emotional, and my eyes start watering, and I just remember thinking, wow, I really mean these words. I really I really feel this. I really do want God to save me. And before I can say anything else, before I begin to cry, I look to my left, and I see this wire between two trees, and it's like it's shining, like being highlighted to me. It's at the perfect distance and height for me to just hold on to it. And as I lay my eyes on this wire, the word salvation echoes in my mind. Salvation. And as I reach for it, I feel like someone's arms getting inside my arms to give me strength to hold on. I just remember looking at my hands like, whoa, you're so strong. And it wasn't my strength. I had passed out. I was completely exhausted. So someone helped me. Hold on to my lifeline. When this moment was over, and I had a small moment to think about this, I knew whose arms those were. They were my mother's. I felt very strong that it had been her who helped me in that moment. And that let me know that she had passed away, and that if she died, then my father had too. And so and this later on was very helpful mentally to me, because there was never a sense of false hope. God never hid from me that they had passed away. He always told me the truth. There was even this one moment later on when I'm writing their names on those lists of missing and found. I start feeling hopeful, and God's like, no, remember, they're not. And looking back, I think this is very helpful, because they didn't find their bodies until 3 months later. So I never held on to false hope, and I feel like if I had having that false hope, once the news did break, it would have been just so much worse. So I had like 3 months to grieve before anyone else. And I do feel like it was hard on my family than it was on me, because after 3 months, I had known from the beginning. But moving forward a lot, the next one I want to mention here is after I get out of the water, I'm up in the mountains of Kalak, and I climb the mountains as high as I possibly can, and I reach this point of view that allows me to see just below me, and I see this father and daughter reunite. They just found each other right there in front of me, and I felt so privileged to be able to witness that, and it moved me so deeply, the emotions of the father. You know, he thought he had lost her forever, and then there she is, and the love and relief. There's no words really to describe it. Just he finally had his little girl safe in his arms, you know. And in that moment, like I said, I felt privileged, and I felt like all the pain and suffering I had been through was worth it just to witness this. It had all been worth it just to witness this moment. And more than that, I felt like I would take even more pain and suffering. I would take upon myself all the pain and suffering of the whole world, if that's what it took for this father and daughter to remain together. And that's when it dawns on me, you know, this is what Jesus did. But it wasn't just for one father and daughter, it was for everyone. And I was just getting a glimpse of what that love is. And this was selfless love, but it was true love. It was the very thing that I had asked to know. True love. And right there, God was showing me the truest love there is, the love of Jesus. And something else happened in that moment. I realized that this selfless love, it lived inside me. And I don't think I mentioned this in the book, but up until that point, I felt like I was living in this beautiful garden because my life was perfect. I had no reasons to complain about anything. But I felt like I was in a glass box because I just felt there was something more, that there was a barrier, there was something keeping me from feeling all of it. And it wasn't until that moment, watching that father and daughter, that the glass broke and I finally feel it inside of me. And that just changes everything. And now, all those people who were running towards the beach, just moments before, I couldn't understand why. I wanted them to just run away and take me with them. But now I understood. Now I got it. It just changed my whole life.
I found.
And so, like, years later, when I'm struggling mentally with my life, and I'm doubting the choice I made that day to live, that's perhaps the most impactful, most helpful moment. Was returning to that one moment when I feel that love and think it was all worth it then, it's still worth it now. I was listening to this song by Hillsong called Oceans, and it's a song that's very emotional to me because every verse I take it literally. Because I live is actually singing my story. All but this one verse that mentions walking on water. I didn't walk on water. Something else happened with the water though. And God points out, you didn't know you could ask for that back then. You didn't know that's something. And when I start laughing because it's funny to me. Yeah, I didn't know that was a possibility. Because I wasn't raised Christian. That's like something I need to clarify. I wasn't raised Christian at all. So all of this was just new and it didn't make sense. On one side, I had my father who hated the Catholic Church and was always blaspheming the church and Jesus. And then on my mother's side, she was spiritual but not religious. So Jesus was just a really good man, a really good teacher. He wasn't God. So to experience all of this was new. It didn't fit my religion. When the tsunami happened, we were living in China. I had all the Eastern religions influences. I was calling myself a Buddhist. Even afterwards, I was calling myself a Buddhist. So there was no reason for me to think about Jesus. Like I wasn't educated, like I wasn't raised like that. The culture around me wasn't like that. And I struggled with the why Jesus for another 13 years. Because I did try the Catholic Church, to be fair, I tried. I was left angry and disappointed every time. And it wasn't until 2017 that I heard the real gospel and things started to click. So what God pointed out that time listening to song Oceans, you didn't know that was an option back then. It just made me realize, people are drowning in their lives by many different reasons, and they don't know they can just call out to God and He will save them. They don't know they have that possibility. So what I'm hoping I can do with this book is just show them, hey, you can call out to God and He will save you and transform your life. Because that's what He did with me, and my life since then has just been lessons about and around love, all the different types of love. And I know it's not a coincidence that He started with Jesus, because that's the foundation for all the other types. And eventually I did get romantic true love that I was thinking about when I asked for love. And I hope this book is my way of making that impact that I asked for. All God really asked in return was that I share my testimony. So the books also has that purpose of just sharing my story. I was always very, very shy, timid little girl. I remember the first time I shared my testimony, I was so nervous. I didn't sleep the night before. I was drinking chamomile tea one after the other. It didn't work. But I started very nervous, and then I don't even know what happened, but suddenly it's over. And everyone's clapping, and God's like, see, this is what I want you to do. Like, this is why I need to share your testimony. And I wasn't even a Christian consciously back then, so that's she's definitely
She's a ragdoll.
anyways, that's why I wrote the book. There's just so much, a lot of details, a lot of things that only this year I'm starting to realize. Because that father and daughter was only this year that I realized, this is also a metaphor for God the Father and me, like how He feels when we come to Him. That's how He feels. That's the love and the relief and the embrace. This father, he had his whole back scratched and bleeding, and that's another symbolism for the cross. And I forgot to mention this in the beginning, but I didn't have a scratch on me. I survived this whole thing without a scratch on me, and it's just another evidence, another proof that it was all God. God was involved that day, and now I'm here too. I will not die but live and proclaim what the Lord has done, as Psalms 118 says, 118:17, I believe. That's my mission. If you have any questions, anything.
When did you start thinking about writing a book?
It was right at the beginning. Someone asked me that the other day, and I've been trying to remember, like, when was the first moment that I had the idea. It was probably in the mountains of Kaulak, because after that father and daughter moment, there was like this sort of deal that I made with God, because I could see He was keeping His promises already, even before I had a chance to do my part. And so I promised Him that I would do my part, and that's what He asked for me, was to share my testimony. I always had a feeling there had to be a book. because there's just so much.
Did you then already start making notes of
Yes,
of the
yes.
whole, so you
Right
wouldn't
away I
forget?
started writing everything because I knew I'd forget the details, and already, so I started writing like January, because this was December 26th. January I started writing, and already I was struggling with the days.
Mm-hmm.
Days kind of blurred together. So, you know, I did my best. And then just a lot of it is just, I was in instinct mode, as I call it, so it's kind of hard to recall details and
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah. You
thinking
remember
about
things
surviving.
later on. Yep.
JJ. He's the last guy.
It's amazing.
So, yeah.
And how long have you been working on this? I know you've been working a long time.
Almost 19 years, right?
Right? Wow.
And then I had a lot of doubt, because, you know, I was thinking, who am I to talk about God? Who am I to talk about Jesus? Especially with the Catholic culture in Portugal, you know, I feel like every miracle is a blaspheme, almost, because it's like you have the priest, so everything goes through the priest, through the Pope, and it's
So
like,
did you live most
so
of
it's
your
like, who am I to?
Yeah. Did you live most of your time in Portugal?
So I grew up in Angola first for like 6 years, and then Macau another 7 years, and then Portugal. Macau,
But you said you
China.
also lived in China?
Yeah,
Okay.
Macau is in China,
Oh, okay,
next
yeah.
to Hong Kong. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But you have a lot of people that you know and relatives in Portugal?
Yeah. I do. I have relatives all over the world.
Yeah.
My grandparents immigrated. My whole family just immigrated to a family of immigrants. Very few are actually in Portugal.
But your Portuguese is nice in Portugal. Very
think so.
beautiful.
I actually don't like it. I don't
You
like
don't like it?
No. I think it's very dry accent, and then Brazilian, it's like, sounds like you're singing. To me, it sounds like you're singing when you speak. So
We're from Brazil, so we speak Portuguese
Yeah.
from Brazil. So when I met her, her Portuguese was so different than our Portuguese.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy that it changes
It changes.
so much. Like,
It's it, yeah.
it's so crazy.
Did you ever get in like contact with like other survivors?
So actually, so there's this person in the book called Patricia, who helps me right after the tsunami, and I found her a few days after releasing the book. I found her, and we were talking, hearing her side of the story, and she was never in the water because she was doing night dives, so she was sleeping during the day, and so she woke up. It was like chaos everywhere, and she just went into action. She knew, like, first aid. She was a dive master, so they know like some first aid and stuff like that. So she just started working on helping people, and she just helped a lot of people, including me. So yeah, it's just one of those amazing people.
And how did you become a Christian? How did you, when did that happen? Were you in school or in college or before that? Or is it just slow transitioning?
Yeah,
Mommy, it sounds
It's
so
very slow,
chocolate.
mostly because I just didn't
Very yummy.
know the gospel, and the Catholic Church wasn't the best at teaching it to me, at least. Like I say, it wasn't until 2017 when I walked into this Pentecostal church, and I am about to get married to my husband, who is a Christian, and he was like promising that this church is different, it's not what I'm used to, and I like had an open mind, like, hey. And as soon as I meet the pastor, he's like right at the front, and I just think like, wow, he's so happy. He was just like gleaming with light, like so happy. It's like, wow, this is the happiest man on earth. And it just slowly, like listening, I just kept coming back, and it just slowly, the gospel that was being preached, just speaking to me a lot, and I just began getting new understanding on my own experience. I don't even know. But you know, the resurrection though is the hardest thing for me to accept and believe. It wasn't until 2021 that I finally was like, okay, I get it now. It's kind of funny because I was going this course, which is like a self-healing type course. You like you can heal yourself.
Mommy, it's chocolate.
And it was Easter time, so he used Jesus as an example a lot, and he helped, like something he said, he explained it. I don't even know exactly how, but it just like
Makes sense.
it's like, okay, I believe Jesus did. If I like, I believe he had performed all those miracles. It's just the resurrection. It's like the last piece, and I knew like I can't really call myself a Christian if I don't believe this key belief. And I don't even know how he did it, but it just suddenly made sense, and I fully believe, like, not just believe, but it's no doubt, like it's a certainty. And more than that, I realized, you know, all these things he says we can do, heal ourselves, blah blah blah. It's like,
Mommy.
because Jesus was the example of the human that did all those things, you know. And I was like, no, I can't do any of these things. I know, like, the more we studied it, the more I just knew I cannot do any of these things. But I know he can, and then through him I can too. Like, what's that verse 9? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Right? And it's like, it was just a click. And then I came to church, back to church on Easter Sunday, and I'm still here. Yeah. Just more pieces started to fall in place, and yeah, it was just very slow in the beginning, and then
God bless you with this career.
it helps other people, and just know, just at least to just know they have the choice, they have the possibility of calling out for help. Like, I didn't know I could walk on water. Like, people don't know they can call on God and ask for their own miracles.
Mommy.
With a sincere heart.
Mommy.
Yeah.
It's not something, it's chocolate inside the stuff.
There's a chocolate inside the stuff.
Yeah.
I think he's been kind of snooping
Oh.
around.
In the corner there. Nice of him to first talk to you about it. That's awesome.
It's yummy chocolate.
Yummy chocolate.
It's a
Very nice.
Is it just in English or is it in other languages?
Right now it's only in English.
Mommy. My heart's so
I know I have to translate it into Portuguese, so just
Will you translate it into the Brazilian Portuguese, please?
it's probably gonna be the Portuguese, because I have an uncle of mine who's a writer, and I asked him to,
Oh, that's nice.
Do it.
That's nice.
because he knows the language better than I do. You know Camões, right? Camões.
Yeah.
So he wrote books about Camões, and
Oh.
so he's really into Portuguese literature, and so yeah. He said it's gonna help me out. Like, Gigi,
I think he's finding
put
the.
it back. I know.
So when it comes out,
I
You just
I
gotta
can't tell
eat
you when,
the
because
chocolate.
I don't want to say next year and then
Just
it's not.
eating the chocolate. Mommy.
I know you want chocolate.
Altman Kruger.
Chocolate.
He doesn't want it. He used to translate books too, right? And now he has his big bookstore.
Mommy. My chocolate.
Yeah, like a book, like a library more
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
Inside.
storage.
Yeah.
But he did many years. He translated books.
I know that he translated.
No, mommy.
Yeah, he did a lot of.
Chocolate. it up.
Yeah.
Closing this JJ.
Alrighty, I think we need to apologize.
Very well.
Thank you
Thank you
for
for
sharing
coming.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can't wait to read it now.
It'll be good.
Can you wait?
Yes.
Yeah, to read the book your mom wrote.
Wonderful. And you've been very patient. You've been very patient. Very nice.
We're going back home.
Yeah.
Now where's the kids?
Where's the kid?
I know, the kids, I guess he's gonna come back on Sunday.